Hey everyone, checking into the cannabis sector. I'm going to take a look at the levels that I was watching in my last video and look at the same tickers and see what's happened over the last while. And also I'm going to add a couple more that I've been requested to take a look at. So CGC, since the last video, it looks like the bears have control at this point. We were watching this 1286 level to support to hold because this had been a level that I had found on the monthly, which was a pretty strong level that we could be watching. Well, we broke that level. So now basically we are just looking for another level. How far down can we go in this falling channel that we're in? So the next level that I saw was 1260, and it looks like that was the low of yesterday. Beyond that, it's 1255, and then after that, there's not much. Like these levels are pretty far apart, and there's really not a lot because when we were in this area previously on this chart, we shot up with not much support being established on the way up. So we really want these areas to hold, or we could really just continuously go really far down for the bulls here. So if we take a look at the RSI levels, we are weekly oversold. The weekly RSI is 26, but we can stay like that for a while. There's no saying that we are going to bounce at this point. The daily RSI isn't even oversold yet, and the 4-hour and the hourly, none of them are oversold, but they are close. So if we can get a flush on Monday, it can give us some oversold levels, then we could probably see some type of bounce. But at this point, the bears have control. TLRY, we were watching this 998 level, which is where we had a little bit of bounce here, and we touched that SMA 50 and we rejected that. And so we were expecting some retracement and then another possible retest. So if we can hold above this 998 level, then the bulls could still come through here and actually give it another attempt for that SMA 50. So TLRY is a little bit stronger than CGC at this point, and the bulls are fighting a little bit harder over here. I just want to take a look at this trend line that I was able to find for a TLRY. Now, I feel that this trend line is pretty valid because I'm just about to release a video on trend lines that outlines what you should be looking for. But what we can see here is that this trend line has acted as support and resistance throughout history, and every time we break through this trend line, we have a big move. So those are two things that make this trend line pretty valid. And now if I move this around into another area and I try to find different areas, like here, it ends up violating other candlesticks. So this was actually the most valid trend line that I was able to find, that after this big drop was resistance. Then we resisted, then we got through it pretty hard. Then we come back down. It was support for a while till we broke, and then when we broke hard. And you can see every time we break through it, we break through it pretty hard. So that makes it a valid trend line. So we bounced off this on the last move, which is around that 998 area, and we are now a little bit higher than that 998 area, and a bounce off this would continue to make this trend line valid. So I am going to keep watching this trend line, and in the next video we can check in and see what happens with it. Okay, checking into oils, and it's interesting, this one is still a lot stronger than the other Canadian producers. This is an extractor, and we can see, so the last time we were looking at this, I had this level as a daily double bottom. Now you can see, and I liked this level and expected a bounce because it was lining up with that SMA 200. We had just crossed it, and we have a daily double bottom, and then boom, we had a nice bounce off this. In my last video, I was pointing out all the bull volume that we had here, and now since then we've had even more bull volume. So this chart is very strong, and it's moving up at a healthy pace. So I don't see any red flags in this chart right now. If you're holding this one, this is a good position to be in at this point, and this is definitely one of the lead bulls that I'm seeing in this sector. So this chart, it looks like we go back to 2012 here when it was WeedMD, and now it's operating under a different name. And so you can see we released around here in this area, and I put a line here, and we went all the way up, and then we've come all the way down. So basically this chart's very weak. We've just been in a constant downtrend since being up at the top of the highs, and it's just been nothing but down for this one. Although we did have a little bit of a move here, it wasn't enough to change the trend, and then we've come back down again. So we've approached this level 15 cents now. We've touched it, and it looks like we bounced off slightly over the last few days. So we want this level to hold for the bulls, because if this level were to break, this would definitely be a play for the bears, because it's like the opposite of getting into all-time highs. We'd be getting into all-time lows, and there are no levels down there, and there's no telling how far the stock can be driven down at this point. So if this level breaks, then the bears will likely have full control. So for the bulls, we want this level to hold, and then maybe we can start making higher highs at this point. So the fact that we've bounced off this 15 level is looking pretty good for the bulls, but we may retest it again, and then we can see who's in charge at that point. SNDL, one of the stronger ones that I was looking at in my last video. We, in the last video, had touched that SMA 50, and we were watching for a retrace and another possible touch, and it looks like we did, and we broke it. And this was a resistance level that I had marked on my chart, 7448, and we broke that level, and then we've come back down, and we are just in this sort of falling wedge pattern at this point. So not as weak as we're seeing from the sector leaders. We look like we could be forming, there's this descending triangle here. So we could have a bull break from this descending triangle, or we could have a bear break. So basically keeping an eye on this triangle pattern and watching the lower level, which we identified as being the bottom, which we haven't broken that level. So if we break bear from this descending triangle, then the next level we're going to look for a break of is this 6111. If we break bull, we want to break this 7448 level. And I'm leaning more in the bullish direction with this chart because we recently just broke it and then we retraced. So typically we would break it, come back down to retest support, which is what we're doing in this area, and now make another attempt. So I'm going to keep watch of SNDL. CXXI, we broke out of this EQ that I was watching, which was a previous sort of demand zone that we could have looked to possibly find some support in this area. We broke everything, and the bears are all over this ticker. So we are just basically making new lows up until Friday. So on Friday, we actually made a higher low and a higher high, and this is a daily inside bar. So we can watch, if we just highlight the levels around this, because if these are old, I'm going to take them off. If we just highlight the levels around our daily inside bar, this is the range that we can watch to find out who has control of this on Monday, bears or bulls, because if we flip over to the hourly, it's pretty clear. It's a tight range. It's not a lot. It's like 3 cents. So if we break the lower level, then we know bears have control. If we break the upper level, then we know that bulls have control. So just checking the RSI, we have almost daily oversold, but not quite. Weekly oversold. So this is similar to TLRY. So, or sorry, not TLRY, CGC, where we have the weekly oversold level. So when we see the sector bounce, we should see the sector bounce together, and the oversold tickers like this should move together. But at this point, we've broken all support, so bears do have control here. ACB, didn't look at this one in the last video, but had some requests to look at this one. We were actually, at the last point in time, we were balancing between this SMA 50 and this SMA 100. Just touched it, broke it, which is a good sign for ACB, and now we're seeing some retracement after that resistance break. So this is a normal thing that can happen, so it's just a matter of now how far we're going to retrace before we do a possible retest, and can we hold this solid level of support that we formed here, 585. So that's the support that I'm watching, and it's not that exact level, it's this whole area, which we, 599 and 585, it's like a zone that we can watch for support. We just broke this SMA 50. We have all these SMAs and EMAs touching. We broke bear from that, but we're in a falling wedge. So we can watch to see if we can possibly, let's see if it's a wedge or a channel. Sometimes it helps to draw it. Sometimes I can see it clearly, and it's not really a wedge. It's kind of a channel. So we're in a channel. So we'll see how far we can drop before finding some possible support and a possible bounce for ACB. Right now, the bears have control of this one as well. I was just trying to see if we have some support, and it looks like this could be a level that we can watch for support, 650. So that is not that far away. So we can look to that level and see if we can get some support. If we break that level, then the bears have full control at that point. So that's it for my look at the cannabis sector. I know there's a lot of tickers that I haven't covered, like the MSOs and things like that. So if you have any tickers you want me to look at, put them in the comments and I'll try and incorporate them in another video. So at this point, it looks like the bears are having control. We can watch the different levels that we've identified in some of these tickers to see what happens from this point going forward. But remember, the bears may be in control for now, but they can't be in control forever. At some point, the bulls are going to step it up. So let's see when the bulls are going to prove it to us.